Alright, let's get this thing started. It's time! Hey, what's up guys? And it's Sean here from Sean Muckle Media, and today I'm going to be showing you guys some cool stuff with Photoshop because I love Photoshop and it's an awesome program, and I think there's some cool stuff that you guys might be interested in. If I can find the thing that I was just looking for, I think it is right here. Yeah, so a lot of people have been using Zoom recently. And just as an example, this is like a screenshot of a bunch of people, a bunch of homies having a Zoom call that you might take with your family over Easter, or you might zoom in for someone's birthday and you all take a nice group shot, right? Well, I thought I might show you today in Photoshop how you can take a screenshot like that and turn it into something kind of fun like that. So here's a birthday party I did for a family that wanted a virtual magic show, so you can see me in the middle there with my little setup, and everyone else called in, and I just took each of their screenshots and made it into a nice little collage-y thing. So I think by going through how I made this, there's some cool things you can learn about how to use Photoshop in general. So let's jump into Photoshop and grab that picture. So first thing you do, now Photoshop does look a little crazy if you haven't used it before, but that's okay. It's not that bad. Okay. So I'll just bring this up. This is kind of hard when I'm got a few screens here going with the Facebook video thing. So just move those things out of the way. There we go. So I've opened up my picture and I'm gonna move my finder out of the way. Okay, so you can see on the right side here this layers panel. There's a tab here named layers, and the background is just set by default to the image that you dropped in. So you notice it has a lock next to it. First thing you gotta do is double click that layer and just click OK, and then magic, the lock disappears. So now we can do some things to it. So the first thing I'm going to show you is selecting something and cutting it out. This was the first thing I learned in Photoshop by making a Mr. Potato Head in, in high school. You had to cut out the vegetables. So I'll show you how you do that. So I'm going to take the rectangular marquee tool and I'm going to click and drag on this layer here, right there. So once you have it selected, you can take the move tool, you could move it around, but it's still on that same layer. So if I was to let that go and then deselect it, Command D, and then move that, it's taking the whole thing with it. So let's go back a step. Please go back a step. What? Go back. Okay, we went back a step. So let's just select that one more time. So what we want to do is put that on its own layer. So what you do is right-click on it, hit Layer via Cut. So if I hit Copy, it would just put it on a new layer, but keep it the same on the layer as it is. But if I cut it, it will actually cut it out like a cookie cutter. So let's Layer via Cut, and you can see on the right side I have another layer here, and if I hide that bottom layer, it's all by itself now. So already you can see where I'm going with this to cut these things out. So what you got to do is go through each one. So I'll do that real quick with the rectangular marquee tool. Now you can use the other selection tools like the lasso tool or polygon lasso tool, which lets you select points like 1, 2, but you're not going to get that perfect rectangle, so that's why the rectangle tool for this job would probably be the best one. So let's just layer via cut that again. Oh, you don't want to click on right click on the layer like I just did. You want to click on the actual thing you selected. So layer via cut. Let's do it again. Okay, here we go. Now, in case it gets confusing, you can hide these layers of the ones you've already cut out, just so you don't get too confused which ones you've cut out. Okay, so I'm going to cut me out there. Just layer by cut. So this is the tedious process. So since this is live, I can't actually fast forward doing this, but just bear with me. So this is Josh Exotic here. He's a big fan of the Tiger King. Let's just keep going here. Okay, hide those two. So we're going to cut out my friend Chelsea here. Cool. Wherever I cut. I'm going to cut out Joanne. Cut. So, like I said, if you do like a birthday virtual call for someone or like any kind of special event where you Zoom call in, this is a cool way to make a cool group photo after the call. Where have I cut? Okay, so let's have a look here. We've cut them all out of that bottom layer. So I'm actually just going to chuck this bottom layer here, layer 0, in the trash can. So let's just drag it into the trash can and then show all these layers again. So here's our photos. Now for this one actually of me, I don't want those black bars. So I'm going to select the bit I want. And then what I can do is hit the mask button here, which is on the bottom of the layers panel. If I just hit that, it goes... Oh, no, it doesn't, because I was on the wrong layer. Got to make sure you're on the right layer so you can see which one's the right one by clicking the hide the eye there. All right, let's try that again. And there we go. Cut those sidebars off, and you can see on the right there I've masked it, but I'll get into masks a bit later. So all we've got are our things now. They're kind of boring just in their original positions. So click on the layer you want. So I'm going to get Joel and Meg here. Command T. And that's the free transform now. So if I just click and drag the box, it will adjust that. And with the update of Photoshop, it keeps the ratio the same, whereas in the old version, you had to hold down Command or Shift, I think, to get this. I'll show you what I mean. So see how you can wonk it out. That used to be the default. So you'd grab something and try and move it, and it would just go nuts. So in the latest version of Photoshop, it'll just keep it the same. So what I want to do is I think I'm going to skew it a little bit, because I kind of want it to look like a bunch of photos on a table. Just fell all over the table. What's the next photo I want? What about the one underneath here? We got Steph here, so I'm going to make sure I'm on the right layer. So layer 2, I can check which one I want. Yep, that's the one. Command T, and move that here. And if you would like a Polaroid effect, you can even do the same thing just by making like a square or a rectangle, and then putting that underneath, and you could make a Polaroid. So I might show you that toward the end. So I'm going to get me here. Now say I wanted me to be on top, because, you know, I'm super narcissistic, and I'm like, no, my photo's on top. Well, I got that option. So I think, yeah, I think that's definitely what I'm going to go for, because I can. All right, so that's the top layer done. Now let's see down here. I've got Josh Exotic. Just click on his layer and then Command T. Alright, so how do we want to put Josh? I think I'll put him kind of like that. And I think Chelsea's pretty good. I don't think she needs to be rotated at all. But I think Joanne here. Yeah. Just rotate a little bit. Nice. And we've got 2 people down the bottom. So yeah, let's just move them. Oh. Every time it tricks me. There we go. So when you're finished moving it with the transform tool, you just hit enter. So we can get out of that. And we've got Chantel as well. Alright, now I didn't get these guys to sign the release forms to be on a live webcam thing, so I hope they don't mind. I hope you guys are enjoying this tutorial. Now, what are we going to do about this background here? So you can see the grid here, that just shows the transparency. So I'm going to make a new layer, and I'm going to drag it all the way down to the bottom to get our background here. Now you can do a solid color. Get the color selector on the bottom left here, turn up the saturation, and say you want a solid color of some green, but maybe some like light green. Well, you get your main color selected, there's the back color there, you can switch between them. But I take that one and I press Command Delete. Okay, actually, pardon me, Option Delete. Command Delete uses the background color, and Option Delete uses the foreground color. Let's try that again. So that, not bad, a bit bland though. So my solution to that is use a gradient. So you've got different kinds of gradients up here. You can see This is a linear gradient. So if I just wipe it across, I'm just going to hide the layer so you can see the gradient. So you can see it's a linear gradient as opposed to a radial gradient, whereas if I draw it out from the center, it's more of a circular radius type of gradient. And there's some other weird ones. I can't say I've ever used this one. You could tell me an application for that. I guess it's kind of like looking down at a cardboard cone or something. And this one's kind of cool. It's like a sunset one. So if you draw from the inside out, it's like a symmetrical gradient. Let's see there. But I'm going to go with the radial gradient today. You guys can play with the gradient types, but I would say a nice light to dark looks great. And that's exactly what I did in the example that I showed you guys. I just went up here and I selected the gradient that I wanted and I actually customized it by clicking here. Now, this took me years to figure out, years, on how to select nice colors, because it is kind of hard if you think about it, just to come in here and get a good color. It can look, when it looks good, it looks like it's effortless, but when it looks bad, it's like, why? So I'll tell you a little tip that I learned recently, which was just go into Google and look up nice color palette. I'm not even kidding you. Nice color palette. And if I switch windows just real quick to Google Chrome, I go to images. Look at this. Color palettes. So if you're making some text with some, or just some elements in a composition and you want a nice color palette, just come get some inspiration. Let's go get some. So for this one, I'll show you an example. Let's take yes. See, I'm getting really picky about it. I'm going to take this one. And what I like about Mac is you can actually drag this right from Google down to Photoshop on the bottom here, onto the icon. You guys can't see the icon, but if I just drag it onto the icon. Oh, I waited too long. Waited too long. Let's try that again. So I'm going to drag it onto the icon. And on Windows, you would have to save the image somewhere and then put it in Photoshop. But on Mac, you can just, and taking my time with it. Just drag it on there and then boom, let's jump into Photoshop. It's going to switch. Oh, sorry. I thought it would automatically switch back to Photoshop, but it didn't. It's my first live stream on the screen sharing, guys. All right, Photoshop. All right, so you can see it's just brought this color palette into Photoshop. That's it, guys. That's the tip. Bring a color palette that you like, that looks good to you. Bring it into Photoshop to help you take the color picker tool here, and you can just pick the color like that. You now have that exact color, and you can set a whole swatch of them. You can put all your favorite color palettes in Photoshop, save them. But that's just something I thought was super cool, and because I was doing some website stuff recently, trying to build my magic website, and I just couldn't get the color palette to look good until I realized I wasn't even using a color palette to start with. You'd think that would be graphic design 101, but some of us are a little slow. So getting back to the photos here, we now have a nice background for the photos. Pretty easy. Now, with this photo on the top here with Joel and Meg, if I double-click on that layer, double-click, it will be a shortcut to bring up layer style. You can get to layer style the slow way by going to, where even is it? I can't even remember where it is because I always just double-click on the layer. But let's see, layer style. I think it would be in filters or something. Layer style. This is a good way to find stuff if you can't find stuff in Photoshop. Just type it into help, look in the search bar, and it will show you, yeah, it's in layer style, then you can come down here and click the options there. But that's the long way. Just do it this way. Just double-click layer 1 on the right side, not on the text, and there's all the options right there. So I'm going to add a drop shadow of nice effects to create a bit of depth. And you can see that's a really hard edge on the drop shadow there. Or can you? If I go up there. That's a great face Joel is pulling as well. So thank you, Joel. Distance. Whoa. Distance pushes it out a bit. Now that's a solid shadow. Let's bring the opacity down, which is the transparency. So a real shadow would have a bit of transparency. And it's such a hard edge. It's like a very hard light coming on there. So if I want the light source to be further away, or at least look like that, I would push up the size, and there you go. You got a softer edge on the shadow. Now you could go through and manually set that by just double clicking and hitting drop shadow, and I think it has the same settings from the last photo you did. So just remember that. Oops. Command 0 to go back out again, and oh, I accidentally did something. So Command Z to just go back a step. You can always go to Window and History, and if you did something and you want to go back in time, you can just click in this list here and go back all the way. See all those gradients I made? I can go back all the way to there. But if I did like, I don't want to go back that far, just click here and back. All right, so let's get rid of that mistake I made. All right, and yeah, you know what? I like this drop shadow effect. I'm going to do it to each one. And you can also, if you just want to copy the layer style of a layer, just copy layer style, and then go to the next layer, hit paste layer style. So I'm going to just come down to each of these, paste layer style, paste layer style. And you know, let's check in and see. Oh, I've got. Thanks, Claire. I should have checked who was watching. I got some nice people watching as well. Where's the comments thing here? Do I have any comments? Oh, Claire. Claire's commented. Thank you, Claire. Claire's actually pretty good at Photoshop herself, so I think she should do the next tutorial. Just gonna come down to. I gotta hide this Facebook video thing. Can't see Photoshop. Hide. Okay, let's keep moving on. So I got one more layer to paste the shadow on. I'm going to right click, paste layer style. Thank you. Okay, there we go. So you could stop there. You could say it's a decent group photo from a screenshot of Zoom. But what if I want to add some text? And I want to say, maybe I'll put the date. So what's the date? It'll be like, it's the 15th of, what is it, April? Oh, happy birthday, Andrea. I did call my sister today, so this isn't the first time I've had this revelation. But happy birthday to Andrea, April 15th. Let's bring this text all the way up to the top. Let's bring it up to the top. There it is. Okay, so see how it's really hard to see it on top of a light background? Well, that's another case where a drop shadow would help you out. You just right-click on there and drop shadow. So I think most people know what a drop shadow is, but just as far as how to find one in Photoshop, that's how you find it. So bring the size down a bit, bring the distance down a bit, and boom. So that looks god-awful. Let's change the text to something a little nicer, like a nicer font is what I mean. So let's put the maybe down here. And like I said with that color palette before, where is the color palette? I can't remember where I put it. Guess I'll just jump back into Google and I'll grab it again. Okay, so I've just grabbed it. And thinking about it. I think it's still here somewhere. Just for the sake of time. Come on, color palette. Maybe I will just have to save it this time. Save image as Okoli Dokoli color palette. Save it to the desktop, and then I'll open it in Photoshop. We'll do this a long way. Usually it behaves itself and it just opens immediately. But not this day. Now, don't forget to comment if you'd like to learn anything in Photoshop. There's a certain effect you'd like to get me to cover. Please, I love Photoshop. And what I first got into Photoshop doing was just going on websites and looking up tutorials of, I didn't even know what I was looking for. I just looked up Photoshop tutorials, found some cool effects, and then once I found one that I like, actually, I'd like to try that myself. that was a great way to just learn all the ins and outs of Photoshop. Come on. This color palette really doesn't want to play ball. Come in to the Photoshop. I just hide Google Chrome. Oh, I think I just read a comment. I want to learn how to mask things. Oh, thank you, Claire. I would love to teach you something on masking. In the next episode, we'll cover some masking. So let's change the color of this thing. Let's give it a, if we right click on the layer with the text, 15th of April, I'm just going to right click on that, and let's bring up the layer style. Oh, and then the color palettes appear. See, well, I wasn't going crazy. It just took a super long time. Okay, let's find the color palette we want. My God. For a second there, I was like, am I going crazy? Am I going? Nope. I think the computer just runs a little slower when you're live streaming. Okay, so let's get, you know what, I'm going to change it. I don't like 50th April anymore. I've changed my mind. Let's jump back into this layer. I'm going to call it Digital Media Crew, because I know these guys from Digital Media University. So let's grab that. Much better. But I don't like the color, and I'm sure you don't either. And I got to be careful not to cover people's faces, even if you really want to. That's perfect. In an ideal world, that would be what I'd want, but we don't always get what we want. All right, I think right below Chelsea here, trying to follow the rule of thirds and put it somewhere that's not too close to the edge. All right, Digital Media Crew. All right, I haven't selected the font I want yet. I'm just going to pick a cool one. I love the name of this one. Are you ready for the name? Dimbo. Bloody Dimbo. You want to have some Dimbo font? Well, it sounds like the cousin of Bogan. Are you a Bogan or are you a Dimbo? All right, let's see how that looks. I think that looks a lot better. But the colors are still not great. So let's, like I was telling you before, let's grab a color palette. I'm going to drag it in. It's going to transfer it. See that? We're going to get the layer that has Digital Media Crew, the text layer. So here's where the magic happens. All right, I know you've been sitting there. So many of you have been sitting there, waiting. When am I going to learn something that's useful? Well, you still have to wait another 20 minutes. No, just highlight that, get the color selector tool, and we go to our color palette here. I'm going to take the blue. Skadoosh. And let's have a look. There's the blue. Now, it looks all right, but it looks better when contrast with some complementary colors. Now, I could take the blue that's right next to it, but since we only have 3 words, I think I'm going to like jump an extra one. There we go. So let's see. That blue and that kind of gray, they do go nicely together, but not with that green. I think it will go even better with the orange. So skip another tile and jump over to the orange. Actually, I think I like that orange better. Yeah, just go with what you experiment, see what looks good. It's looking all right. That gray, I'm not a huge fan of it though. Maybe I do want a little more color than just gray. I should have just gone with this one. And there you have it. That's a slightly better color scheme than we had before. But don't be afraid to mix and match it. You know what? Maybe I'll take this one. Now that we have those 2 colors, maybe I will get that nice light. Actually, I'm just going to grab this blue and then I'm going to lighten it. So let's just bring it close towards the center. It's all about experimenting. All right, visually, that's kind of cool. Yeah, I didn't mind that. Doesn't really contrast with the background that well. The text kind of blends too well with the background. It's all subjective though. So there you go. Let's take that out, and I would like the text to stand out a little more. Maybe if I gave it an outer glow. Now you can go over the top with effects and just spoil the whole thing, but you just want that contrast. Digital Media Crew. This isn't the entire digital media crew. There are some people missing that couldn't make it to the Zoom call. So if any of them are watching this, don't worry. There will be another another Zoom call. I think that looks all right. You know what? I'm pretty happy with that. So we went from just a screenshot of a generic screenshot to a nice group photo. So this is an effect that's ideal for if you have a family Zoom call and you take a screenshot where everyone's posing. That would be a kind of cool photo to have and keep in the family group. You could even print it. You could print it and give it to someone. I haven't done that yet, so don't take my word for it. But you could. If you're allowed to go to Officeworks eventually, definitely take it to Officeworks and print it. Alrighty, well that wraps up my first Sean Michael Media Photoshop tutorial. Claire mentioned that masks would be fun to cover, and masks are really cool. It's a more efficient way of cutting things out without destroying the photo to the point that you can't go back and change things. So I'll get into more of that tomorrow. Thanks for joining me, and I'll see you guys next time.